In the early morning of October 1st, 331 BCE, the Macedonian camp stirred as dawn broke over the Mesopotamian plains. Alexander the Great stood at the edge of his tent, surveying the vast horizon where the Persian army awaited. The air was crisp, a stark contrast to the impending heat of the day, fueling both tension and determination among his troops. Alexander donned his armor with practiced ease, the weight of the bronze a familiar comfort. His mind was a whirlwind of strategy and anticipation, knowing this battle would determine the fate of empires. His generals, Parmenion and others, gathered, their faces reflecting a mix of confidence and anxiety, ready to follow their king into the fray. Across the battlefield, Darius III watched as his vast army prepared for battle. The Persian forces, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, were an awe-inspiring sight, their banners fluttering in the rising sun. Darius knew the stakes. His empire hung in the balance, and he felt the weight of history pressing down on him. As the sun climbed higher, the Macedonian phalanx formed up, each soldier's face a mask of grim determination. The ground was dry and dusty, the air thick with anticipation and the metallic scent of sharpened weapons. Alexander's cavalry, the companion cavalry, took their positions on the right flank, ready for a swift and decisive charge. With a signal from Alexander, the Macedonian army began its advance, the ground trembling under the synchronized march of thousands of feet. The morning heat intensified, beads of sweat forming on the soldiers' brows, mixing with the dust of the battlefield. Each step forward brought them closer to the clash of steel and the test of their resolve. The initial clash was brutal and chaotic, the sound of metal on metal filling the air. Macedonian spears thrust forward, meeting the Persian front lines with deadly precision. The sheer size of the Persian army was daunting, but the discipline and training of Alexander's men held firm. Recognizing the need to disrupt the Persian formation, Alexander led his companion cavalry in a daring flanking maneuver. The dust kicked up by their horses clouded the air, obscuring their movements from the enemy. The Persians, caught off guard, struggled to regroup as Alexander's forces crashed into their side. Amidst the chaos, Darius spotted Alexander and ordered his elite cavalry to target the Macedonian king. The tension was palpable as the two sides clashed, each fighting with desperate ferocity. The sight of Darius turning his chariot to flee caused ripples of panic among the Persian ranks, shifting the battle's momentum. With Darius fleeing, Alexander seized the opportunity to press the attack. The Macedonian troops, invigorated by their king's boldness, pursued the retreating Persians with renewed vigor. The hot sun beat down relentlessly, the exhaustion of battle weighing on every soldier, yet the promise of victory spurred them onward. On the left flank, General Parmenion faced intense pressure from the Persian forces. His men held their ground, but the situation grew increasingly dire as Persian reinforcements threatened to envelop them. Parmenion sent urgent messages to Alexander, pleading for support. Alexander, torn between pursuing Darius and aiding Parmenion, made a critical decision. He turned his cavalry back to support his beleaguered left flank, demonstrating his leadership and tactical flexibility. The Macedonian forces, inspired by Alexander's presence, rallied and pushed back the Persian assault. As the afternoon wore on, the Macedonian phalanx continued its relentless advance. The Persian army, now leaderless and demoralized, began to crumble under the sustained pressure. The heat was stifling, draining the strength from both sides, but the Macedonians' discipline and resolve never wavered. Darius, fleeing the battlefield, faced betrayal from within his ranks. His own men, seeing the battle lost, turned against him, hoping to curry favor with Alexander. The once great king was left to die in the desolate plains, his empire shattered. With the Persian army in full retreat, Alexander ordered his troops to secure the battlefield. The sense of relief was palpable as the Macedonian soldiers surveyed the scene, knowing they had achieved a monumental victory. The cool evening air brought a much-needed respite after the day's brutal heat and exertion. The battlefield was a grim tableau of the day's carnage. littered with the bodies of fallen soldiers from both sides. Alexander moved among his men, offering words of encouragement and mourning the loss of his brave companions. The cost of victory was high, but the path to glory was now clear. In the days following the battle, Alexander focused on consolidating his new territory. He addressed his troops, acknowledging their bravery and resilience, and began making plans for the next phase of his campaign. The bond between the king and his soldiers was stronger than ever, forged in the crucible of battle. With Darius defeated, Alexander turned his attention to the Persian capitals. He led his army through the heart of the empire, encountering little resistance as city after city fell under his control. The wealth and splendor of these cities were a testament to the vastness of his new dominion. The Battle of Gaugamela was more than just a military victory. It was a turning point in history. Alexander's triumph marked the end of the Achaemenid Empire and the beginning of a new era of Greek influence in Asia. The legacy of this battle would shape the world for centuries to come. In the quiet moments after the battle, Alexander reflected on his journey. The weight of leadership, the loss of friends, and the uncertainty of the future weighed heavily on him. Yet, his resolve remained unshaken, his vision of a unified empire driving him forward. With the Persian Empire now under his control, Alexander looked to the future with a mixture of ambition and determination. The challenges ahead were immense, but so were the opportunities. The Battle of Gaugamela had secured his place in history, but his story was far from over. Our journey through time comes to an end for today. We embark on new adventures every week. If you relish the experience, please like and subscribe.